Welcome back to Senior Savvy Cannabis. I'm Catherine Wolfberg. Today we're joined by Chase Werner, who is going to help us pick out seeds for our very first home grow. Chase, welcome back.
Thank you.
I have questions.
Sure.
First question, why is there so much hate on Autoflowers? Can you speculate about why that might be?
I can give a little context too for that. In general is there's a lot of, in the growing community and in internet in general, there's a lot of strong opinions, and growing is a craft where there's many ways to grow successfully. There's some fundamentals that are really important, but in a situation where people, discover they have their way of growing, and some people think it's the only way to grow, but there's many ways to skin a cat with growing. With Autoflowers, they are relatively new. I mean, they've been on the market for at least 20 years, but compared to cannabis, obviously, a newcomer. And when they first were brought to the US market, there were a lot of subpar Autoflowers. But now we've had breeders that have been breeding Autoflowers for 10, 15, 20 years. And so there's good Autoflowers on the market for sure.
Okay. And also someone said in the comments, can you please explain what you're talking about before you use terms?
The terms? Sure.
So can we, just for everyone listening, can we explain what an Autoflower is?
Totally. So an Autoflower seed is just the cannabis industry's term for a seed that automatically flowers. It flowers on its own. So you have to understand the other type of seed that people are used to are called photoperiodic seed, and those flower based on the day length. Technically, they flower based on the amount of nighttime, but for practical reasons, they flower when the days get shorter in the fall. Autoflowers they come from a strain or a type of cannabis called ruderalis that was native to like high northern latitudes where the days can be up to 24 hours long. And so that plant evolved to flower regardless of light levels. And so you can have 24 hours of light and an autoflower will still germinate, vegetatively grow for a little bit, and then will start to form buds and flower. A photoperiodic plant, you've got to reduce that day length to around 12 hours for it to flower. So that's what the autoflower
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It seems like an autoflower is a good place to start if you want to learn the basics and get your confidence up, and maybe evolve into a photoperiod once one knows more.
Yeah, autoflowers in general, they're a good seed for a beginner. A photoperiodic plant, you can also, beginners can also try, they can start with photoperiod plants. Some people are limited to what they can grow like in an outdoor situation. If you're in the extreme southern part of the US or the northern part of the US, you won't get, the days won't be long enough to keep photoperiodic plants from flowering. And so autoflowers are really kind of your best option outdoors at those latitudes. But there, autoflower versus photoperiod is another thing that you could debate. You can run circles around that. Autoflowers can be a little bit tricky on germination. You can't really start them in seed trays. You need to start them like in their finishing pot, because the taproot, if the taproot gets stressed a little bit, it can flower really small. So that's something to be watchful for if you're doing autos.
Could explain one of the many mistakes I've made when I try to do it myself.
Sure.
So I have chosen to grow my favorite strain, the strain that made me fall in love with cannabis, which is Jack Herer.
Yes.
Jack Herer.
Jack Herer.
Okay,
So,
Okay, Jack Herer, to honor Jack Herer. I wanted to make sure that it is going to be an energizing high.
Sure.
This might be a somewhat complicated question, but if we have two Jack Herer seeds from the same batch,
yes,
and they are planted in very different environments, could there be a huge range of how the high feels after the plant has been grown and dried and cured?
Huge is probably too strong of a word.
Okay.
Huge range, but there certainly will be a range.
Okay.
If you grow 2 seeds from the same seed lot in different places under different conditions, the terpene analysis and the cannabinoid analysis and the yield will be different. I mean, you could even take that to the extreme where you could take a clone. You could take 2 clones, which are genetically identical, and you put those 2 rooted clones in 2 different growing environments with 2 different conditions. Those won't yield the same flower. So if 2 clones grown in 2 different situations are going to be slightly different in terms of like terpene concentration, you can bet that seeds will. It's just the reality of seeds versus clones. Seeds have more variability. Now, as breeders do multiple generations of the seed and stabilize it through breeding practices, you can limit that variability. But you certainly shouldn't expect to see, it's not like a machine or a computer program. It's an organic thing where you're going to see some variability, especially in cannabis, because cannabis breeding is newer compared to like heirloom vegetable breeding, more stabilized.
Is there anything within our control that we can do to have the plant possibly err on the more energizing side of things?
We do that with seed selection.
Okay.
So like the breeder that we work with for these Jack Herer seeds, they know, they've given us the feedback that it's an energizing strain of Jack Herer. And
I've never had a not energizing strain, by the way. I know that it can vary.
For Jack Herer?
Yeah.
Yeah, generally Jack Herer is going to be high in the energetic terpenes. It's that kind of profile. And so this one, according to what we've got from the breeder, gives those same results.
And if you'd like to grow along with us, you can actually do that. You can buy the seeds that I'm buying, and you can learn how to grow alongside me, and Chase can be your teacher too. And
For sure.
I am so excited to have my own weed and not to have to rely on anyone else. Okay, I have more questions. So, okay, are there any common mistakes that new growers often make with seeds? I imagine it's like impulse buying because like people probably buy them before they're ready to do anything. We haven't even looked at the seeds yet. We're still getting our tent and the soil ready.
And the environment and all that.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, especially with outdoor growers, we see it every spring. People order seeds. They order seeds early in the season and then they plant them early in the season. And then like they'll start the seeds inside and it'll still be too cold to put out the plants for 6 weeks. And so then they don't have a proper indoor setup, and so their seedlings are getting leggy and falling over, and they're trying to move them out on the warm days and pull them back in at night, and it's just a hassle. And so, in terms of the outdoor growers, we have a tool on the website. It's triangleseeds.com, and you can look at the USDA growing zone map. You put your zip code in, and it'll tell you the recommended dates that we say for seed germination based on your zip code.
Wow. Could that vary potentially like a lot?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about from Montana to Florida, it's going to be completely different.
Wow.
And then it's even going to be different in elevation. So someone in coastal Maine, for example, could plant sooner than someone to the west of Maine at a higher elevation because it's going to stay colder longer. So you plug in your zip code, it'll tell you what zone you are, like what planting zone. And it'll say like, for North Carolina, for example, for photoperiodic strains, it says put them out like late May, early June.
Interesting.
So check that before you sprout the seeds. Go with those dates and see what they say.
Okay.
Because starting them too early, you're just going to be dealing with leggy plants indoors before you move them outside. Other issues with seeds, people overwater them. I mean, that's basically overwatering, overfertilization. Those are two of the most common mistakes people make with plants in general.
Totally.
So,
I've heard like water them to death. That you do not want to do that.
Drown the plants. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Before I ask you about feminized seeds,
Sure.
which is a very, hot topic, once in a while, I'll find a seed in my landrace strains and feel like really excited. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you guys get excited when you find a seed? I feel like it's like, do you get excited?
Well, I usually get annoyed because I want to buy. I don't want seeds in my bud because I have the seeds that I want.
Yeah.
But I'm, you know,
it's probably split 50-50.
I sell seeds, so I'm in a different situation. I don't need seeds.
So I've collected a handful of these seeds
it's cool to find bag seed for sure. It's, you know.
Can I do any? They're definitely not Autoflower seeds. I know that for sure. But I don't know if they're I don't know if they're female or they're male or.
You won't know that. Mm-hmm. They could be what we call regular seed. And so I'll take a step back.
Please.
Cannabis plants are either male or female. And normal cannabis seed, it's about 50-50. 50% males, 50% females. So when you're growing regular seed, you need to sex the plant. Mm-hmm. You basically veg it up. You start to look for pistils at like the nodes of the plant, and that'll indicate that the plant's female. If you start to see little pollen sacs, they look like little kind of little balls, frankly, and that shows that it's a male. So your seed, your bag seed, it could be male or female. Also, sometimes the fact that you find bag seed means that the genetic has a tendency to become what we call like a hermaphrodite, which is a female plant that has some male parts and pollinates parts of the buds.
I see.
So germinating, growing bag seed, don't bet the farm on it. But if you want to sprout it and give it a try and make sure you're paying attention to it, you can. But it could be a male plant. It could have a tendency to herm. Mm-hmm.
How are breeders able to guarantee female seeds when they sell them on their site?
Sure. So like the feminization process, maybe?
How exactly does that work?
Yeah. So the basics of making feminized seed, which is just all female seed, right? You're just it's a convenience factor. You're not having to deal with growing twice the number of plants you want so that you can cull half the males. What we do is we take a female plant and we spray like a silver solution on it. Mm-hmm. Colloidal silver is one. There's another type of silver mix you can do, but you basically cause that female plant to reverse its sex and put off pollen. And that pollen is female pollen. And then you collect the female pollen, and then you pollinate a normal unreversed female with that pollen, and the seeds that it puts off are generally, if it's done right, 99.9% female.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's
when did that become like a part of breeding, or was that always a part of breeding?
Not always a part of breeding. It was being done. I mean, I started looking at growing in the early 2000s, and people were making feminized seed then. I think in cannabis, 80s or 90s, probably people started messing with feminized seed. I think just for convenience. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll just end with this also.
Sure.
So let's say I grow a fabulous Jack Herer, and let's say somehow, because of your expertise, I somehow grow an amazing land race Colombiana.
Sure.
Now I have two plants.
Yeah.
Could those potentially be combined into a Catherine strain? Or is...
No, not initially, because you're talking about growing... if the Colombian bag seed you have is a male...
Oh, so that's a plus if I get a male. I don't have to necessarily be disappointed.
No, if you could collect the pollen.
Okay.
That's kind of another level.
Wow.
And like you need multiple... To really do breeding, you need like multiple tents.
Okay.
You can do it in one tent, but it takes longer.
Okay.
That's a big project.
Yeah. Okay. Let's learn how to
see how it goes first.
Do it first. Okay.
I think, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you can experiment with dusting pollen onto another plant. You got to time it right, but we could work through that and do that at some point.
Okay. Interesting.
If you wanted to, yeah.
Okay. Well, we are starting with this Autoflower. We also chose the Autoflower because I'm gonna be traveling this summer to show you guys some really cool cannabis stuff going on around the world. And I wanted to make sure that our plant was finished in time. Autoflowers are typically faster.
Yeah, 10 weeks, 12 weeks.
Okay, even for a sativa.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, the sativa will be on the longer side of that.
Of course.
But yeah.
Some people were a little bit concerned about how tall sativas get for the lack of height of my tent.
Yep.
I know that's kind of for another topic, but can you kind of explain some of the strategies that we'll use?
Sure, yeah. So it is
so it doesn't hit the top?
Yes, it's a taller auto.
Yeah.
And so what we'll do is we'll use techniques like low stress training, where we're kind of bending the branches, and we'll have a trellis net pulled across the tent. And so the idea is to just take those branches that are growing up and bend them down, and so that you get multiple bud sites at kind of a lower level.
Like a bonsai tree?
Kind of like a bonsai.
Okay.
Yeah. You're training the plant. You're basically training and using that trellis net to keep the buds at a lower point in the tent.
Okay, but they'll still
they'll still grow and stretch.
Grow.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, it'll just be more manageable and over more surface area.
Yes. Yep. When you're looking if you're looking down at your tent, you want to see all plant.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like if we just let this auto grow in that tent, it would shoot up, and you'd have some buds here and some buds here and some buds here.
Totally.
And then because we don't have under canopy lighting, you'd have the buds at the top are getting too much light, the buds down below aren't getting enough.
Right.
They'll get larvae, you'll get popcorn buds. So we're going to do some lollipopping, which is basically pulling leaves off the bottom, some training. We're going to try to have this nice, 18-inch section of canopy.
Wow.
Lower in the tent.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you seen those plants that are shaped like menorahs?
No, but this will kind of be shaped like a menorah.
It kind of reminded me
like
of it, right?
Okay,
yeah, maybe. Sure. Okay, well, Hanukkah's not until like December, so we'll get this done, and then I will figure, because you know how many text messages I get about the menorah plant?
Oh my gosh.
More than on my birthday. People are like, "Have you seen this menorah weed plant?"
We can do a menorah plant.
We'll do the menorah plant.